Hello, Scoobies. It is I, the Final Girl, and I have been deep diving the TV series Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the better part of a year on my TikTok. And the number one question and the number one comment I get is, will you please start a podcast? And I have been debating it on and off. I feel like the space is very clouded. There are a lot of people and their voices on the podcasting world, specifically when it comes to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There are so many amazing podcasts. I know the ones that I listen to, but lately it has been a comment that I have been getting a lot, and I have been thinking about it. And there is so much more I have to say about the series and these episodes that I can't necessarily say in 5 to 7 minutes. And so I thought, why not? Let's just do it. So, ladies and germs, welcome to Bored Now, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast hosted by me, the Final Girl. Now, listen, I'm not quite sure what we're going to be doing with this podcast. I know this first season, we are breaking down each episode in the first season. I'm going to have some special guests on the show. I'm really excited because some of them you'll know from Buffy Talk, but I think eventually we might touch on other Buffy topics as well too, not just a deep dive. But the reason why I want to do the first season as a deep dive is because if you're following my TikTok, you know I'm currently deep diving season 5 right now. I don't know if I will be when this airs though, but I'm currently deep diving season 5. And I had a realization the other day that I never deep dived season 1 with you guys. I started in the middle of season 2 because I was in a Buffy rewatch and I started talking about it in January of 2025. And the fandom came and was like, we want more. So I just kind of started deep diving where I was at in my rewatch. And I think it was probably What's My Line or What's My Line Part 2. And now we're on season 5 and I'm getting ready to jump into the body. And it's kind of crazy to me to go back and watch season 1 at the difference of how things are. And so for this first episode, we are diving into the first episode ever of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Welcome to the Hellmouth. And also The Harvest, and I'll tell you why. Because for me, I consider Welcome to the Hellmouth and The Harvest one episode. I've been watching it since March of 1997 when it premiered. And I remember when it premiered, it just premiered as a 2-hour episode. So there's a to be continued moment. And for us, when we were watching it live, it just went on to the next scene. So I always count it as one episode. You can't just watch Welcome to the Hellmouth. You have to watch The Harvest along with it. So I've got 7 pages of notes and I'm super ready to dive into this episode with you guys. So let's go.
In every generation, there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer.
One of the things that I love so much about this first episode is Darla in that opening, right? So we get Darla, and she's this blonde schoolgirl, and she's walking with this guy who's wearing a leather jacket, and maybe he rides a motorcycle or something. He's the bad seed. And you get this feeling from the opening right away that oh no, this is going to be another one of those shows. The guy's going to do something to the blonde girl and it flips it. She's the thing that you fear at night. And that's what I love so much is that you're taking that moment, that trope, and you're just flipping it on its head. To me, it feels very like Wes Craven. I'm a huge Wes Craven fan. And his daughter, Jessica Craven, who, shout out, she's an amazing political activist. She told him, why is the girl always falling down? Why can't she be smart? Why can't she fight back? So he created Nancy Thompson. And so she became the ultimate playbook for what a final girl is. And so it's kind of the same thing with Buffy, when they were creating her, it was, why does the blonde girl have to be so stupid? Why does she have to be dumb? Why does she have to succumb to, the bad guy? Why can't she be the thing that people fear? Why can't she be the thing that monsters have nightmares of? And what I love And we don't really talk about it a whole lot. We talk about all these other like big bads, but we don't really talk about like how iconic Darla is, right? She is so fucking iconic. And like something that I never really realized and put together before until I was listening to Charisma Carpenter's podcast, The Bitch Is Back. And she had Julie Benz, who plays Darla, as her first guest. And they were talking about how Darla is kind of like Buffy. She is that opposite version of her. Like she's the vamp world version of Buffy, and that's kind of played up for in the first couple of episodes while she's around. And like it makes sense because like the master is her version of Giles, right? So like the master is her mentor. He's who she looks up to, and ultimately that's who Giles becomes to Buffy. But as the episode goes on, we meet our hero, Buffy Summers. And our little problematic queen is just trying to start over after burning her gym down at her previous school.
I did. I really did. But you're not seeing the big picture here. I mean, that gym was full of vampire asbestos.
One of the cool things that I love about this episode, and truthfully, this whole first season of Buffy, is that they filmed the entire season before it even aired. So a lot of the shots in Buffy's like prophetic dreams are actually from Prophecy Girl, which is the season finale. And I love that they did that. It also allowed them to kind of go back in and reshoot some things that weren't working. But from there, we meet Xander, Willow, Jesse, and Sunnydale's High Queen, Cordelia Chase. It's kind of obvious that like Jesse, Willow, and Xander are like the outcast, right? And Cordelia is the popular one. She's the one who's kind of like what she says goes. She's reigning that like torment over the group.
Willow, nice dress. Good to know you've seen the softer side of Sears.
Like you could tell there's history between all of them. And I kind of wonder like maybe did they get along back in the day before like middle school when like everybody's trying to be cool and popular. But for me, like the most impactful moment of a lot of this is Buffy. And right away we're kind of seeing what her character is and how true of a character she really is, that goodness in her, because she's trying to start over. You know, Buffy's a very pretty girl and she's at this new school, and here it is, the most popular girl's already taken a liking to her, and she sees how she is right off the bat and how she treats Willow and how she treats the people around her. And, you know, Buffy could easily have slid into that role. She easily could have been like, okay, I'll just be in the popular girls. I'm from LA. You know, maybe I'll be the one who becomes the queen because I'm the coolest. I have the coolest track record. But she doesn't. Instead, she like flips it and she befriends Willow and Xander and Jesse, obviously. But she befriends Willow, and it's kind of shocking to Willow in a way, like, oh, you want to be my friend? And it just goes to show like Buffy is not that type of judgmental character, that type of judgmental person. And I think for me as a little kid who was like severely bullied, I was like 12 when Buffy came on air. Seeing that like kind of showed me that like, oh, maybe there are people out there who aren't going to torment me and treat me horrible and make fun of my clothes or make fun of my weight. You know, here is this girl who I wished I looked like. You know, I had greasy blonde hair and glasses, and I had braces, and I was, you know, probably 50 pounds overweight. And I saw this girl, look how she treats people. And I remember looking at her like as like a beacon of hope, you know, like, look how she treats everybody. And she treats people with respect. And then I looked at the characters of like Willow, and I so related to Willow because I was the nerd. And I love that when she eventually found herself and became who she was, it was very empowering. It showed me that like I could accept myself for who I was. I didn't need to impress anybody. I didn't need to change who I was. People would eventually like me. To me, a lot of that is what gave Buffy her depth, her humanity. We get introduced to Giles, her cute, youngish watcher. And I say that now because I am about Giles's age. And as I'm doing my like Uber rewatch on my TikTok, it's kind of funny now to watch Giles and see how similar he is to the character of Wesley. Like he's so green, he's so new at this, and he just like throws the vampire book at Buffy, and you can see it in his eyes how like excited he is to just talk to her about this and you're my charge. it's just really fun to see that side of Giles because right now I'm very much in the deeply put together part of Giles on my rewatch. But then Darla's victim is discovered, and we get to me like one of the most iconic and amazing moments in the entire series. I don't think when you're talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you can't talk about this scene between Giles and Buffy. I love it so much that I even put it into my production announcement trailer for the Buffy documentary that we're producing. That's like the opening of our trailer is this scene because it's so important. It's so powerful. It's so impactful.
You really have no idea what's going on, do you? You think it's coincidence you're being here? That boy was just the beginning.
Oh, why can't you people just leave me alone?
Because you are the Slayer. Into each generation, a Slayer is born. One girl in all the world, a chosen one born with a
Strength and skill to hunt the vampires, to stop the spread of their evil blah, blah, blah. I've heard it, okay?
I really don't understand this attitude. You've accepted your duty. You've slain vampires before.
Yeah, and I've both been there and done that, and I'm moving on.
It like sets up the tone and theme of what Buffy is going to become. You know, she's trying to just be this normal girl, you know, she doesn't want all of this. She's just coming off of being called and realistically, like when you think about it, Buffy is starting school like in the year. Like it's not the first day of school, it's just her first day of school. So you know, the events of the first movie were relatively short. It was over the span of a couple weeks. You know, Buffy gets called and then she's got to train with Merrick and then it's the prom and then she burns down the gym and then she gets kicked out of school and has to go to a new school. So Buffy relatively could have been the Slayer for less than 6 months. So this is all still new to her. And she just got kicked out of her school. Her previous watcher died. And she lost all her friends and everything around her, and she just kind of wants to start over. She wants to be that normal girl, and that's the struggle inside of her, is that she just wants to be your normal teenage girl, but she knows what's out there. She knows what's lurking at night. She knows what awaits for her in the moonlight when she goes out there, and she has that goodness inside of her where she can't allow that to happen. She can't allow that darkness to take over and to win. And it's this constant struggle and battle that she'll continue throughout the entire series. And like the moment that she confronts Giles about all of this is a masterclass in storytelling. It is breathtaking in acting, and the 3 minutes of dialogue is just so incredibly powerful. It's giving so much complexity. Like it's funny, it's serious, it's sad, it's showing the duality of what this series is going to be. It like sets up the history of what she's gone through, and it catches the audience up as well too. And like you see the sacrifice and the struggle and pain that she has had to go through at 16 years old. And also there's like a small moment there with Giles too, because Giles recognizes everything that she has gone through. You know, he's so new, she's his first charge, and they're both kind of young. And he looked at her and saw these expectations and then got the reality of it. And so for him, you can see it all over his face as well too, that he is kind of like, I have to approach this differently. I have to approach her differently. She's a 16-year-old girl. She's a human, and I can't just throw her to the wolves, and I don't want to throw her to the wolves. And I think it's that moment that like clicks for him because you could see it on his face, and that's what makes him the good character that he is and makes him this amazing watcher, and why he is better than any other watcher and any other watcher after. I think that it's such a powerful moment because that shifts him and shifts who he is. And all of that to happen in a matter of 3 minutes is just so fucking iconic. The 2-hour premiere is kind of like a movie in itself. And it kind of sets up the tone for everything that's to come. And it sets up this world-ending storyline. It tells everything about what to expect from the series in this one episode. Or 2 episodes technically, But it's a really great story, and even if it was just a one-off 2-hour thing, you still would love the 2-hour presentation. It's a complete story, like, it's kind of like the thesis of, like, what's to come, and, like, all of this stuff is packed into these 2 episodes, but it doesn't feel rushed. Sunnydale is on a Hellmouth, and that's as demony as it sounds. Our big bad this season is the Master, and shout out to Mark Metcalf, who is committed to appear in the Buffy doc. I am so excited. I can't wait to interview him. We learned that he's this really old vampire who came to Sunnydale, and Sunnydale sits on this Hellmouth, which is this like crux, I guess, for everything that is evil. And he wanted to utilize the power and open it up, which we'll soon learn that so many people want to come and do this to Sunnydale. But in that, he triggered an earthquake and he got trapped down where he's at. And so he's using his vessel, Luke, to get him out. And so Luke will feed at the harvest and then it'll go to him. This whole like interdimensional thing that I think like only Giles and Willow could probably understand. I don't know how it works. They don't really explain how it works too much in this episode, just that he's connected to him and it's a whole bloodletting ritual where the master has to drink of Luke and Luke drinks of the master. But we learn about the Hellmouth and the harvest from Buffy's new mysterious friend in town, who we learn eventually his name is Angel. He's a little broody, he's a little sexy, and I had a crush on him right from the start. I was team Bangel from the start, okay? But don't worry, I very much enjoy Spike and Buffy. We'll get there. One of the things that like I wanted to talk about and touch on with this episode, and not just really with this episode, but the first season of Buffy, is the music. Like how important the music is and how it shaped each scene and episode. And particularly with this first season, because there were a lot of like grunge bands, a lot of like 90s alternative that was being used in this first season. And not just even the like bands that were featured, but also the score, the composition of that first season felt very much like a horror film. And like I know in season 2, the score became so epic and beautiful because Christoph Beck was scoring it and it felt very like symphonic. But in this first season, it felt like you were watching a real like horror series. It was dark. It was kind of rumbling with the music. And there is just nothing that compares to it. Like the other seasons, the music just doesn't line up with that first initial season. I always say that like Buffy became Buffy in season 2, right? Like that's when they finally found its legs. That's when they found the format of releasing the big bad halfway through and then, oops, it's a red herring. Here's the real big bad. It became more cinematic and more story arc. This first season is just that real discovery. It's very monster of the week. It is a lot of it's inspired by horror films. And I just feel like a lot of it tonally is in that music. And I think it's something that we don't really appreciate a whole lot as fans or even talk about a whole lot in that first season. And I think that's part of the charm, right? Like that's part of why it is so special. Like a lot of us like super Buffy fans, when we're trying to get people into the series, we'll tell them like, just make it to season 2. Like season 1 is a little rough. You got to get through season 1. And I think that we're doing a little bit of a disservice with that as Uber fans. But we know that it does. It just gets so much better in season 2. But just watching this first episode, it just really made me realize like, it was great from the start. One of the benefits of them filming the entire series first before they even released it was that they got to go back and reshoot some of the stuff. And a lot of the scenes in the pilot episode and the subsequent, the harvest, I think, were reshot because Buffy was originally like angry. And I think that they realized it early on because by the witch, she was no longer like this angry, bitter character. And so they had to go in and reshoot a lot of stuff, specifically like in the library scene. She was coming off like really like unlikable and angry and bitter and kind of stuck up a little bit. And they realized that tonally that they didn't want Buffy to be hard. They didn't want her to be this way. So they refilmed it. But you can actually see some of the remnants of that when her and Giles are at the bronze. And he's like trying to have her like scan out to the crowd, the way she's talking to him, specifically when she talks about Angel, right? And how she's like, I really didn't like him. She's coming off like very like aggressive and like almost stuck up in a little bit of a way. Like you can see on her face like how annoyed she is, and it just feels like they were trying to kind of make her like a version of like what Cordelia is, that like mean girl, right? So like to me, I love that they went in and like retooled her character, because kind of seeing that little nugget, I just am not a fan of it. But also that could easily be explained as is that's kind of who she was. She was that person, right? She was that before she was called to be this slayer and this superhero. So as she's learning and growing, there still might be some of those little nuggets and moments there. When Buffy leaves the Bronze to go find Willow, she ruins her social life and attacks Cordelia. And we get like one of my favorite quotes, like, I legit, no lie, say this to my dog all the time. Like, anytime she's whining at me or she wants like an extra treat after she had just like gotten one or I'm working, I'm like,
What is your childhood trauma?
but then like also like I love how when she's like says to her, she goes, have you seen Willow? Cordelia's like,
Why do you need to attack her with the stick?
it's just such a funny moment and shows like the comedic timing of Charisma Carpenter. The first half of the episode closes on Buffy, Jesse, Willow, and Xander in a mausoleum after Xander had just revealed the truth that he had overheard Buffy and Giles, and he now knows that she's the Slayer. And we get a little bit of a preview of what's to come for Buffy. We see a little bit of like her fighting action. We see her dust a vampire on screen. We see her style a little bit, how she likes to kind of taunt and give the little digs and have the sassy, quippy comebacks. She's caught off guard by Luke and she is thrown into one of the graves and he jumps on her and it's a to be continued. But for us, when we were watching this live, it just continued. It just rolled right into the next scene, which is why I always consider it one episode. In the Harvest, Buffy, Xander, and Willow escape, but it's unfortunate that Jesse gets left behind and he becomes the bait for them. And then this is where we see the Scooby Squad start to form, like the format of what they're going to do. There's some big bad and they rush to the library and they kind of figure it out. And there, Giles gives us and the Scoobies a history lesson and tells us their version of like what the Buffyverse vampire history is. Because every vampire history is so different, and this one is creating its own lore.
The books tell that the last demon to leave this reality fed off a human, mixed their blood. He was a human form possessed, infected by the demon's soul. He bit another, and so they walked the earth, feeding, killing some, mixing their blood with others to make more of their kind. Waiting for the animals to die out, and the old ones to return.
There's no sparkly vampires here. These are rough demons that are thousands of years old who can eventually get souls and become good people. And it's a complex world. Sunnydale is just incredibly complex. And like, I don't think Willow and Xander get enough credit for being a part of the Scoobies and being a part of this. And like, what I mean by that is like, yes, we talk about them being chosen families and we love them because they're such amazing characters and they're this ensemble genre. But what I'm talking about is the actual fact that like, Xander and Willow also didn't choose this. This was also kind of thrown on them. And yes, ultimately they do choose it by saying like, we're going to do this together. We're going to be this family and do good and all that stuff. But in a way they kind of aren't. It's kind of thrown on them as well too. And now they have this big secret to carry. And I love that scene where they're kind of talking to each other about that. And they're kind of having that freak out. And both of them are just kind of saying like, you know, we can't tell anybody. Look at the world around us right now. They're all going on with their lives and we have this secret. And it, in a way, allows them to relate to Buffy that nobody else can, that I don't think that like it's appreciated in the way or respected in the way that Buffy is, because she's the Slayer. This was her destiny and the destiny is for the Slayer to be alone. You know, there's no written manual or no written book about, you know, the Slayer and her friends. And I think that, you know, that is kind of a one of the disservices. I feel like we don't really talk about that. We don't really talk about how Xander and Willow gave up their lives for this and gave up their lives for the cause. And like they don't have any superpowers. I mean, Willow eventually does, but right now they don't have any superpowers. They're 16 too, but because they're good people and they believe in Buffy from the start and they believe in this, that's what they do. They jump on board and it eventually becomes a chosen family and they just become so incredibly tight and they're like the super friends. They're the Scooby Squad. We get an appearance from Angel again, and he gives Buffy some tips for when she goes into the sewers. But it's Xander who actually helps her out and surprises her. And to me, this scene is kind of like a double-edged sword for me because it's the behavior of Xander. Like we get it right from the jump that he is this toxic character. And if you aren't aware, I am a part of what we call the Xander Slander Club, where we hate on Xander Harris because he is such an incredibly toxic character. But I'm just kidding. I joke that I'm a part of the Xander Slander Club, but if I'm being honest, and I talk about this on my TikTok a lot, I think his character is important. I think that we need his character and we need those types of characters on the show. But right from the jump, he kind of shows kind of what his character is going to be and who he's going to be. He's kind of toxic. Buffy tells him, don't come, don't do this. Like, let me take lead, let me take charge. And he doesn't listen to her. He can't listen to her. He can't handle the fact that a woman is in the lead. And he even says it. He talks about his masculinity and says it's a hit to his masculinity and he can't just sit around. So he doesn't listen to her and he just shows up. But the show, where it frustrates me in that area, is it could have shown so much better, right? It could have shown that Buffy needed him so much better. It could have shown that like she needs to rely on her friends so much better, because in the end, she does. He helps her escape. She would have been in the middle of a trap and, he helps her. And so two people there is better than one people to get out of this trap, right? And so the show kind of like rewards his bad behavior to me. So he is this toxic version, this masculine toxic teenage version, and he's growing too. We have to understand and respect that, guys, especially like when we're breaking down Xander. He's 16 as well too. He's a 16-year-old dude, and so he's growing, he's learning, and he evolves. And I do think that Xander does grow. I'm not He-Man woman hater club on Xander all the time. I think there are moments, particularly in season 2. I think Xander is a really great character in season 2, despite a couple of bad episodes. But I think for the most part, he's a good character in season 2. And then in season 3, he's a piece of shit again. And it's like a spiral with this character. But it's like the show rewards him when he is this toxicity or this toxic character, right? And so it's kind of frustrating because here it is, he didn't listen to Buffy, then he's rewarded by it because he saved her life or he saved her from this thing or that. And so it just kind of becomes a pattern with his character. And it's something that I noticed in this episode. It just like hit me in this episode. Another character on here that I love eventually, but like in this first season, I am not a fan of Cordelia. Cordelia is my favorite character. Her and Buffy, they're my two favorite characters. And I love who Cordelia becomes. In this first season, I'm not really a fan of her because, like, to me, she comes off just mean and cruel, and like she just comes off like a bully. And I think that to me, it's when we get to the episode Out of Mind, Out of Sight, that's when we start to kind of see like a real side of Cordelia. We start to see that she has layers and she's not just this mean girl persona that they're kind of making her out to be. But for these first few episodes, it's kind of like so hard to watch her be so cruel to people like Willow. It's because I was that, I was having that happen to me at the time. But by season 2, I love her character because her character then just evolves and they like give her depth and all sorts of stuff. And what charisma brings to that role is so much more. And so it's like by season 2, like I said, they really found themselves and she was no longer needed to be like essentially like the bitch, right? The harvest, of course, takes place at the Bronze. And again, the music is so good here. I'm obsessed with the song Ballad for My Dead Friends. And that's what they use when Darla is like walking up in that slow-mo shot. And it's just like a tiny little nugget, but like like, when I first heard that at 12 years old, I was like so obsessed with it. Like I couldn't figure out like who like it was. And then when like the internet came around, I did all the research and found it. And I was like super bummed that it isn't on the Buffy soundtrack. When they released a Buffy the Vampire soundtrack a few years after season 1, it had like all these amazing songs, but a lot of them were in season 3, a lot of them were in season 4, but they didn't have this song, and I was like super bummed. And so I can't even find it like on Amazon Music. I think on Spotify, I even think it's like hard to find. The only place I could find it is on YouTube. And can we like talk about the bronze for a second? Because like, how does it work? Okay. We know that they sell alcohol there because in later seasons, when the gang is over 21, Dawn makes that joke about them losers drinking alcohol and all that stuff. And they all kind of like look at each other and stuff. And so and there's a bar, we see the bar there. So we know that like, that there's serving alcohol there, but they also allow like teenagers, like the like 16-year-olds to be there and party. And I don't know, I grew up in Chicago. So like we didn't have this type of stuff. I'm from the city and like we didn't have this type of stuff. Like our third spaces were kind of like a little different. And so I would have loved a place like the Bronze, but was that like a thing? Sunnydale's a small town, right? It's a one stoplight town is what Cordelia says. Is that a small town thing, like where you have like a bar or a club or something? And like, if you're not 21, you can go in there. I don't know. In my neighborhood where I grew up, like we could go in the bars if we weren't 21, but we were kicked out pretty fast. So unless one of our moms was a bartender or something there, we're just stopping in to say hi and then we got to skedaddle and get out. So I don't know. I would have loved a Bronze. I would have loved to like hang out with Bronze. I'd still love to hang out with Bronze as a 40-year-old woman. I still think it would be super cool. But someone let me know, like, is that a thing in small towns in the 90s? Like, were you able to do this? Did your town have a version of the Bronze? Buffy, of course, stops the harvest and she dusts Luke. And as the episode ends, we have lost some lives. We've lost a friend, but the episode kind of glosses over that and ends on like a happy, funny kind of comedic note. It's like showing the campiness that's going to be of the series and that you can't take it too serious. The earth is doomed. But like also, can we talk about the lack of mourning over Jesse for a second from Xander and Willow? Like they just move on like that. It's kind of like mind blowing. And I don't know if I think he's only mentioned maybe once after this, but like I get it. They can't harp and they can't dwell on it because it's a TV series. You don't want it to be sad and depressing, but like, damn, he's been their friend since like kindergarten. But to me, I love it. It was absolutely a perfect series premiere for me. I remember when I seen it, I became super obsessed with it right away. They re-aired it the Saturday after and I recorded it. So I had it on a VHS tape. This time I was like prepared. And I've told this story a couple times on my TikTok. And if you're new here, if you're new listening here, I'm a film director. I made a documentary called Fredheads the Documentary, and it's all about the fandom of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm so ingrained in fandoms, guys. I love fandom. But I told this story in there about how when I was 12 years old, I was severely bullied in school. I had a really hard life. I was incredibly picked on by the kids. I was picked on by like the teachers. I didn't have the best home life either. I would come home and I was getting it at home as well too. So both worlds had like this hell for me and I had nowhere to go. I had really like no way out. And when you are thinking that way and you're thinking like it's the end of the world, and you can't see through the fog and you can't see through the clouds that things are going to get better. I attempted I attempted suicide. I luckily in my VCR, the Dream Warriors VHS tape was in there. And I thought to myself, that the movie Dream Warriors was so impactful in my life. And I was like laying there and I remember thinking like Nancy went to bat for these kids. Nancy gave her life for these kids, gave her life for the cause. And in that film, the message that she said was, in your dreams, you have the power to be anything that you want. And why are you giving up? I got up and I got help and my mom came in and all of that. But after that, I had to go to therapy for a really long time, obviously. And I just felt like in therapy, they weren't really like addressing some of the problems that I was going through. And for me, I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. I just want to go to school. I just want to be happy. I love school. I'm smart. I love art. I love choir. I love all the things that I was doing. It just I was that kid who just was so bullied that they just chose to pick on, and I don't know why. I had a stutter. I still have a stutter, so that's why sometimes there's some jump cuts in my content because I'm editing out my stutter. But I was just really, really picked on. To me, I was like, that's the problem. I was like, so why do I gotta go to therapy? Like they're like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Like it's these people. Like let them go to therapy. And then the situation at home, my family thought I was so angry and so bitter and all this stuff like that. And it's like, well, of course, it's because I'm getting tormented at school. And then at home, our home life wasn't like the best either. I was 12 years old, so it kind of just felt like it was like everyone else. And so I just didn't get anything out of therapy at that time. A lot of questions were like, how do you feel like you are reacting appropriately to the behaviors that are happening to you. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm 12 years old. How am I supposed to react? Like I'm getting shoved in the lockers and my hair cut in science class and my glasses smashed and threatening notes and people telling me to kill myself. And so of course I'm gonna. And so when Buffy, I felt like whatever. So I was phoning it in. And I didn't really have anything to like look forward to. I had a couple of friends. I had my two best friends, Dana and Holly, and my cousin, who I sometimes call my brother, Bradley. I had them, and without them, I would not have been able to survive. We call each other our Scooby Squad, but without them, I wouldn't have been able to survive. But then Buffy premiered. She premiered that March, and this first episode was so good that I was excited to see the next week episode. And then after that, it became so important to me. It gave me something to look forward to every single week. And I didn't necessarily have anything to look forward to. So for me, it gave me like a purpose. And I always say that it saved my life. This TV series truly saved my life. And I love talking about it. I love having conversations with people about it. I love sharing my opinion with you guys. I love deep diving and seeing it through a whole new lens. And I love the comments that I get on my TikTok from people because it changes my viewpoint on things. And I just feel like we are building such a really great little community over there. And to me, that is why I'm doing this podcast. It's because you guys asked for it. So I'm finally doing it. You win. I give in. I'm doing the Buffy podcast. I'm really excited for this season and the things to come. I'm excited to record tomorrow. I'm actually recording the season finale tomorrow with a special guest. And I'm so excited to like talk to this person. And we're going to dive into why they're a Buffy fan. We're going to dive into why Buffy is so important to them and why they think it's so culturally relevant still today. And we're going to get to know them a little bit and we're going to have some fun. Make sure that you're following, that your notification bells are on, and wherever you're listening to or watching this at, because I'm sure it'll be posted everywhere, like Spotify, Apple, and the video I think will be on YouTube. Make sure you're following me everywhere so that way you can be updated for that. And also head on over to my TikTok and Instagram where I will be posting exclusive clips before the episodes premiere. And to my Scoobies that interact with me every single day on my social media, I just want to say thank you. I'm so excited to take this journey with you guys.